Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, from wherever you are joining us from around the world. Thank you once again for tuning in to this program. We have been doing it now for several weeks. It has been quite an experience, and I thank each and every one of you who have been part of the program. Thank you so much for being with us and for tuning in and for helping with this civic education program. As I keep on saying, it is really important for all of us to be engaged on the issues that are affecting South Sudan. And this is not something that one person can do. It requires a lot of us to be concerned about the country and to inspire the conversation that is needed for all South Sudanese people to reflect on where the nation is going so that we can rescue the country and bring about the South Sudan we want. This journey, as you all know, we started it several weeks ago, and today we are bringing it to an end. As for those of you who have read the book, you know very well that the chapters we are going to cover today are the last chapters of the book. So thank you so much. This has been quite fun. Believe me, I have really enjoyed the program for the last several weeks, and I'm quite grateful of what we have been able to accomplish together. We got a lot of South Sudanese people to be interested in this book and to be informed about what has really happened with the country, how we got to where we are, how all these atrocities that we hear about were actually committed, and who was responsible for committing those atrocities. So at least now, the public is informed. And that is the beginning of any kind of resolution to the crisis that we face. We have to inform people. It's people who are informed that are then capable of making decisions on what needs to be done. So the last several weeks have been amazing. I want to thank everyone who has actually wrote a comment, those who have made their own videos, whether they are for us or against us, whether they are Matograp or they are patriots. We are grateful to them all because in one way or another, they have helped to advances this conversation. They have made it possible for many people who would have not heard of what we are talking about to hear of what we are talking about. And for that, we are extremely grateful to you all. And we encourage you, especially as we continue our program today, to make sure that your voice is heard. Make sure you write comments. Those of you who are interested in making your own videos, feel free to do that. You have every right. In fact, we are fighting for your right to make sure that you have that ability to be able to speak your mind without anybody trying to intimidate you. That is the kind of South Sudan we want. And that is how we will get about to building a South Sudan that is better, a South Sudan that is prosperous, and South Sudan that is inclusive. We fought for many years to have civil liberties so that we could criticize our government, criticize our officials. That is a right that we all have to defend. And whether it is me who is being criticized or Salva Kiir, we should all be able to tolerate one another. So please go ahead, make sure that your views and your comments are known. Let me, as I said, I want to ask those of you who are tuning in, please share the video so that other South Sudanese who have not had access to this program will find it and they will also become part of the program. Please share the video. You can do it directly on your wall. You can also do it on WhatsApp groups. You can do it on Messenger. You can send it to individuals. Please do that. We really encourage you to make sure that the video is shared widely so that other South Sudanese can also become part of this program. We are really grateful for that. And also, make sure you write your comments. Sometimes I read them, especially when I'm speaking, but definitely when I finish the program, I go back and I read every single comment. So please write there. If there is something that you want me to improve on, then please do that. Write it. I will go through it. Feel free also to reach out to me privately if you don't want to write a comment on the program. Write to me in the messenger. I read every message that is sent to me, and I try as much as possible to also reply. So please do that, and let's get the conversation going. Let's continue the conversation, and let's expand this program into other spheres. So Today, we are going to talk about Tim Edwards, chapter 16 to chapter 20. But before we do that, I want to make a few comments on what is happening in Juba, especially in regard to the economic situation that we are in today. You know very well that we have done a few programs on why the economy in South Sudan is bad and what can be done to rescue the country. We kept on saying that changing ministries of finance or changing governors of the central bank, that is not going to solve anything. It is not going to solve anything because the problem is not with the Ministry of Finance per se or who is in the central bank. The problem comes from the top leadership of the country, and that is with President Kiir himself. He has not been able to provide a vision of where the country is going. He has not articulated an economic agenda where the country should be going, and he has not created a culture of respecting rule of law. That is, if the budget is passed, it should be implemented as it is passed. And then more importantly, he has encouraged a culture of corruption that is directly led by him and his family. As you all know, resources are being diverted from the budget to finance ARC. And ARC is just a reinvention of ABMC. And ABMC, as you all know, and those of you who have read the book as we have gone through it, this is a company that is more or less owned by Salva Kiir directly. So he's the one that is stealing from the country directly through Bol Mil. Bol Mil is the middleman through which the resources are diverted to him. When you look on the taxation, as I keep on saying, the contract for collecting non-oil revenues has been awarded to a company led by his own daughter, Adut Salva Kiir. So Adut is the one that collects the taxes, and then she decides how much to keep and how much to give to the government. So there is no way, no matter who you bring to the Ministry of Finance under these circumstances, that economic situation in the country would improve. And also, we are building on years and years of bad practice, where corruption has been encouraged as the only system in the country. Right now, corruption has entered every sphere of life in South Sudan. And this is why we say the country has been destroyed. It's not that the destruction has been physical. Of course, there is the physical destruction. We covered this in the program. We talk about the massacres in Juba, the killing of Nuer in 2013, going door to door. We talk about the intercommunal violence, how tribes are being armed so that they can kill and finish one another. We talk about the politics of how groups are manipulated and turn against one another. We talk, of course, about the unknown gunmen and what has been happening, where people are shot simply for opposing the government or saying different views. All of those are physical destruction of the country. And they are real because they cost life of the people. But they are nothing compared to the moral and spiritual destruction of the country. What has really happened under this regime of Salva Kiir is that the morals of South Sudanese people have been completely destroyed. All of us have become thieves as people. We have become matograbs. We are bribed. Our own resources are used to bribe us so that we commit terrible deeds. We become people who spy on one another and who go and report their own brothers, their own uncles, their own relatives to the authorities so that they can earn a living. This is the real destruction that has happened because a society is made up of its values. And we as people of South Sudan, although we have always been poor, we have always lacked access to material wealth, to technologies, to development. We were always proud of our values as a people. But these values are what Salva Kiir has destroyed. And that is the real destruction that has happened. And this is why we keep saying that leadership is not just about policies. It's not about implementing the right policies, but it's also about setting the right example. When you have a thief that is sitting on the top and he is spreading that behavior to everyone that is around him, you have office of the president, which has become really a melting pot of thievery in the country. You have someone that is engaging in witchcraft at the helm of the nation. You have someone who is a sex maniac at the helm of the nation. How can the country not be destroyed? Because we as human beings, we don't just only learn theoretically. We also learn practically. We observe what other people are doing, especially people we consider to be successful or role models. That is why even here in the US, people look at the celebrities and they try to model themselves after what the celebrities are doing. So when you have someone like Salva Kiir, who is, I think in Dinka, we call it Ran Piolech. Yeah? You have Ran Piolech, someone who is completely useless in terms of moral foundation as setting the example, it's not a surprise that the whole country has become what it is today. Today, South Sudan is more corrupt than most countries in the world. If you look at the ranking of the Transparency International, that corruption now has become a system. Our values are completely destroyed. Even though people go to church and we call ourselves Christians, we are just professing Christianity just in our mouth. But we are not really practicing what Jesus Christ has taught and what Jesus Christ has done. Because we as Christians, we are supposed to model ourselves after Christ himself. But now, if you see all these officials, even some of these young men, young people that are now coming out to attack me, criticize me, is because they want to be awarded. The system that has been created is a system of matograbism, right? This is the politics of the belly. People are only looking out for their own bellies. They will betray anyone. It doesn't matter who the person is. They will betray their own fathers. They will betray their uncles. They will betray their own clans. We even know within our own communities, people that betray their own communities to the national security so that they can be awarded contracts, they're awarded jobs, even when it directly threatens the lives and the security of the members of their own community. This is the extent to which things have reached, because we have someone who is unworthy that is setting a model in the society. And that is how societies decay. They decay because people have lost moral foundation. When you read the history of Roman Empire and how Rome came to collapse, it wasn't just simply because they were no longer able to find soldiers and great generals that could defend them. It was because the morals were destroyed, the values were destroyed. So that is what has happened in South Sudan. And this is why we keep saying that we cannot wait for Salva Kiir to die for us to rescue the country. Right? So this economic situation you saw today and that we are going through, let me just be plainly honest with you. There is no solution to it. As we speak, there is no solution to it. Unless Salva Kiir is removed and we have a different leader in place that is able to rebuild the economy. But if Salva Kiir is there, it's the same thing that is going to be done over and over again. You could replace all the ministers of finance, put whoever there. As I said last time, even if you bring Muhammad or Jesus Christ or Buddha or Ngundeng Bong or Ariad Makwe or any of the great spiritual leaders, and you put them there to try to run this economy while Salva Kiir is the president, believe me, the economy will not recover. The only thing that can be done if we really want to change this situation is to make sure we remove Salva Kiir. Because without removing him, we cannot begin to address the fundamental problem that the country faces. I know a lot of people are angry at Bach. Yes, Bach is the Minister of Finance, but Bach is a product of the system. First of all, he has been in the office of the president for a very long time. And anyone that has been in the office of the president for such a long time is by definition corrupt and probably a thief. Because in that office, as you know, so many funny activities has happened. Signature of the president was forged by his direct relatives who happen to be his close aides in the office. Mayen Wal, Lul Kur, Luol, Ustaz, Yel Luol, Yel Luol, they were there. They stole the money and they were arrested. They were sent to prison for life. And then they were pardoned by the president and they were rehired again. Right? So by definition, that office is made up of thieves. And this is the office where Bach came from. Right? So when you hire a thief, and you know that this is a thief, you are by definition encouraging thievery. And that is what has been happening in that office. So Kiir is the thief in chief. Is the head of the mafia, of the cartels. And all of these guys are just there as his associates. So there is nothing that is going to change this economic crisis. Let me just be very honest with you. If you think that there will be a miracle, no, there will be no miracle. No one is going to give them any money. No one will give them money. Because they have been given so much money in the past and they have misused it. Even now, you hear the stories of what happened with Hemeti. They took money of Hemeti, 400 million, and they ate it And then now they were hoping that Hemeti was going to die, but he didn't die. And now they're in a real problem. So the thing is this: I know the economic situation is bad, but instead of you people thinking something is going to change or Kiir will fire a minister of finance, a new minister will come, no. The system cannot function. The system itself cannot function. No matter who you put there, they will fail. No matter who you put in the Ministry of Finance or the central bank, they will fail. Because Kiir is going to order them to give the money to Bolmel, to give money to Kurajing, to give money to Makir Guy and all of these people, and then there will be no money to actually implement the budget or do any kind of development in the country. And that way, no improvement will come. So the only way in which we can improve our situation is by, first of all, removing Salva Kiir. That is the only way in which you can address the economic crisis that we face. You cannot think that you can leave Salva Kiir there. You come and, someone gave a good analogy. Let's say you have a pilot and the plane takes off from Juba and the plane is supposed to go to Nairobi. But in the middle, the pilot is bribed. And instead of taking the plane to Nairobi, he diverts the plane to Kampala. Okay? So if you just go and change the flight attendants, the people who are on the plane that are handing out food or beverages, do you think that will change the direction of the plane? No, it will not change the direction of the plane. The plane will still go to where the pilot wanted to go. So all of us in South Sudan, we have been changing the flight attendants, thinking that that will get us back to on the route to Nairobi. And the pilot is there, getting the plane to Kampala. Unless if you change the pilot or somehow you convince the pilot to change his mind, nothing is going to change. And that is exactly the situation we face in South Sudan. Unless we get rid of Salva Kiir, because Salva Kiir can no longer improve. He has been there for 19 years, and he cannot possibly improve. So if he cannot improve, the only way is to remove him and put someone else there that can actually get the country together and can help the country to begin thinking about how we address the problem. Our country is enormously wealthy. We have the Nile, we have arable land, we have a lot of other resources. It's not just the oil. And we have been saying for the last 19 years that we need to diversify the economy, that we should learn from the experiences of other nations. They have gone through this. They have relied too much on oil only for them to be in crisis later. Instead of us waiting for this crisis to happen and for us to be affected by it, why don't we learn from those experiences? And we begin diversifying our economy. There was a blueprint that John Garang left. The SPLM framework, strategic framework for transition from war to peace of 2004. It was very clear that we use the oil to develop agriculture, that we prioritize building the roads. We employ the youth, we empower them, we train our young people so that they are skilled. That was there. Kiir simply refused to implement it. And if he has failed to implement it for the last 19 years, believe me, he cannot improve. So the only solution is to remove him. And there are people that keep on saying, no, Kiir cannot be removed. If you don't want him to be removed, what do you want to be done? You want the country to disintegrate? You want the country to die? Simply because you have your relative or someone you consider as your elder or whatever. You want him, he's more important than the whole nation. He has been given a chance, 19 years in power, where he has led with a terrible, terrible record that will haunt him forever. He will remain in the history, not only of South Sudan, but of Africa, as among the most failed leaders ever in the history. And that is because of how he has done. So what we need to do is to dismantle the system that Kiir has created, because that system is too deformed to be reformed. It needs to be, is more deformed than the system that the NCP has built. It needs to be completely dismantled. That is what needs to happen. And this, we should not allow the regime to continue to divide us, to use regionalism, because nowadays tribalism has collapsed. So it's no longer really able to use the Dinka, because the Dinka, most of the Dinka, especially on this side of the Nile, have woken up. And even in Baragazal, a lot of Dinka has woken up. It's just a band of relatives that think that they can defend the ability to steal resources, come up with like very funny scams to take the money out of the program. As we discussed last week, this situation of Salva Mato, putting almost $300 million in cash in a coffin, and wanting to smuggle it to Uganda using his relatives, his own relative. And when we say, of course, Salmato, we know him, he's from Gogrial, and from Gogrial he's from Apuk. So when he uses his relative, he uses his people, Apuk. So when we say that, some people go mad. Why say that? Well, how do you want it to be said? To be said what? That he did not use them? Who did he use? So when we say that, people go mad. So we need to say this. We need to be able to say this. And we don't mean to target anyone. We just need to point out that this system has been so corrupt for so long, and we can no longer endure it. And as I said last time, this system is going to be dismantled. It will be. It has to be dismantled. There's no any other way. And we don't want anyone to stand with Kir. Our problem is with him. We don't have any problem because, as I keep saying, even his own people from Awan Chan are suffering. They have no water. They have no food. They have nothing. Thievery and this murdering regime of the country is being defended using their name. The people who, by the way, and those who are eating with Kir are not just only from Gorial or from Awan or from Mwanjang. They have Nuer in them. They have Equatorian in them. They have Shuluk in them. They have all kinds of different tribes in them. But they then come and use the base of the president, where he come from, to defend it, so that the rest of the country is turned against these people. This is a blackmail. This is blackmail. And instead, you have people walking into this nonsense of blackmail. So my people, let's wake up. Let's wake up. Our problem is not with anyone. Our problem is Salva Kiir. Salva Kiir has to go. He has to go. The reason we talk about his daughter like Adut is because Adut has become so embedded in the corruption of her father. How do you then go and collect taxes? What is her experience in collecting taxes? We have National Revenue Authority that is delegated with the responsibility of collecting taxes. That is why we talk about this thing. But it's not because we want to target anybody or their family or their clan. No. But it's when they go and mobilize the clan, and the clan allow themselves to be mobilized to defend all these terrible things, that we will not accept. And let everybody hear this. We cannot accept that. If you want Salva Kiir to blackmail you so that he goes down with you, that will be your own choice. But Salva Kiir is going to go down. So I just want to make sure I said that very clearly. Very clearly. We have no problem with anybody. What we don't want is this guy that is running the country to the ground. He has to go. That system that he has created must be dismantled. But whoever wants to go down with him, with Kiir, be my guest. You will go down with him. The rest of the South Sudan are united. We are united. We have been united, first of all, by the liberation struggle. We all struggled to create this country. Second, we are united by the suffering we have endured under Salva Kiir. We have been killed. People have been killed. They have been displaced. They have been forced to run to refugee camps. And their own country is there, is independent. But they have been forced to go to refugee camp, to go and live a terrible life, as if they don't have a home. Their homes have been burned down. Their wives have been raped. We have been affected by unknown gunmen. People are shot in Juba, killed simply because they speak up. People are detained and subjected to long detention. We have been united by our hunger. We have nothing to eat in our own country, and it's supposedly the land of great abundance. And we are starving, literally starving. People are dying. And these people that are dying, they come from Bahr Ghazal, they come from Upper Nile, they come from Equatoria. So we are united by the suffering that we have endured. And we are also united by our imagination of the future that can only happen without Salva Kiir. So let nobody joke this time. We are 100% united, and we will do whatever needs to be done to make sure we got rid of this regime. So economy is not going to improve. If anyone think that it will just improve because we are crying and that it has to improve or a new minister of finance will be appointed, you are mistaken. The only way the situation will begin to improve is if we get rid of Salva Kiir. And that is what needs to be done. That man has to be removed. So let me stop there in terms of this interlude, and let's get into our topic for today. As I said before, we are going to discuss chapter 16 to chapter 20. This is the end of the book. These are the last chapters of the book. They are very brief chapters. Most of them are common knowledge to all of you, so we are going to go through them rather quickly. Chapter 16, the title of it is Gabelia, or tribalism. And this is very important because tribalism, we were just talking about it. It's not just only about the issue of tribe, but embedded within this concept of tribalism is also regionalism. And this is what Salva Kiir has been using, has been walking on the back of the people of Barghazal to come to power, and then he misused them to create a system of thievery, a system of murder, system of mistreating the rest of South Sudanese people. But this Gabelia has been there for a very long time. It was not invented by the SPLA, or it was not invented by anyone. It was always there. We come from different communities, different tribes, different cultures, different languages. What we share is the geographical location called South Sudan where we are in. But tribe by default does not create problem. People have lived, have coexisted with one another for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Sometimes we have fight, not just between one tribe or another, but even within the same tribe, or even within the same clans, there are wars that have been fought. We have, this is given. And we are not the only country in the world with different tribes. There are many, many, many countries with different tribes. And somehow they have managed to handle this situation and not use it as a source of division. But in our case, as Tim Edward talks in the book, tribalism and regionalism have been used by all kinds of individuals, whether they are politicians or by prophets or whoever. They have used them to create division. Now, he has a very interesting definition of a tribe here. If you read from the first page of the chapter, he talks about like tribe is really a derogatory word defined as a collection of savages. But for contemporary purposes and pragmatic tenacities, let us define tribalism as a judgment against a citizen because of his ancestry or a place of birth. You know, this definition that he has put, how we judge one another by our ancestry or place of birth, that is actually fitting. And I want all of you who are watching to put this in your mind. How do you judge your fellow citizen? Do you judge them simply because of where they come from and where they were born, or what? And if you do so, then you are actually engaging in tribalism. And this is the kind of concept that politicians have used over and over again to divide the people of South Sudan. And when they do so, they are furthering their own agenda. They are not articulating any kind of agenda to unite the people of South Sudan. You know? So we have to be conscious about that. Do you judge your fellow South Sudanese of where they were born or their ancestry? If you do, you are encouraging tribalism. And as I said last time, we have to rise above the tribe. We have to give this grand thing called South Sudan a chance. You know, we all created this nation so that it can be bigger than all of us as tribes or as clans or whatever. We want to create a nation, a melting pot, a nation of people with common vision, common aspirations. And we cannot do that if we hold on to our own tribes. If you think your tribe is superior than other tribe, if you judge people based from where they are born, no, you should judge them based on their character, based on how they think, based on their ideas. That is the better way in which we can build a better South Sudan. Because today, you have with Salva Kiir, people from across different tribes that think that South Sudan is there for them to loot so that they extract resources from it. And we have to have a different collection of individuals that oppose this and say South Sudan is for all of us. We have to build a nation that we can all be proud of. Even the generation that are yet to be born, they will be proud. And those who have sacrificed their lives to create this nation will also be proud of it. That is the alternative that we should be putting into this. So my people, let us go on this. Now, tribalism, as you all know in our history, has been used by the British and the Arab. They used the divide and conquer or divide and rule tactics to divide us. As Tim Edwards put here in the book, and this is very important, they say this was the case when successive regimes in Khartoum would arm tribes traditionally opposed to each other to fight the SPLA because it is a Dinka rebel group. Aktul al-Abid bil-Abid. You know, that was the principle. Kill the slave using a slave, right? That is how the Northern Sudanese were treating us. Of course, you all know very well, Northern Sudanese, they used to look at us as tribes, and they look at us as slaves. They call us abid, and they say you kill a slave by using another slave. So if they want to kill a Nuer, they arm a Dinka to kill a Nuer. If they want to kill a Shuluk, they arm Bari to kill a Shuluk. If they want to kill a Taposa, they arm a Dinka to kill a Taposa. Right? Aktul abid bel abid. And this is the same principle that Salva Kiir has adopted. He simply replaced the Jalaba, and in his head, we are supposed to be his slaves. The way that people like Tora Dengma Wien or Tutkeo, they will go and kneel before him and beg him to give him money, to give them money and to give them possession. So he sees us now as his slaves. And that is why in his head, he wonder. He's out there spreading HIV/AIDS. He's out there doing all these things. And he wonder, why should anyone care? This is his own country. It's his territory. He can treat us the way he wants. So in his head, he has become the Jalaba. And we now are his slaves. And this is why now he armed these communities to go and kill these communities. He used his own Dinka people through Matianganyor, give them the guns to kill the Nuer. So in his head, he's arming slaves to kill slaves. The same way now, those of us in Jonglei, is arming Murle to kill Dinka Bor and to kill Lau Nuer. So he's using the slave to kill the slave. The same thing in Warap. The other day, you have Tiger Battalion that went with military trucks to go and kill Dinka or Marial Wow. So he's arming slaves to kill slaves. So all of us, whether you are in Tiger, whether you're SPLA, you're national security, or in police, in Kiir's head, we are his slaves. And he's using us to kill us so that he can entrench himself in power. It's the same mentality that the British use, it's the same mentality that the Northern Jalaba used, and the same mentality that he's using now. He sees us as just tools that he can use to divide. And this is why he can hang out with Riek Machar after they have killed the people of South Sudan, and they are dividing their money. They're dividing the oil, they're dividing the gold, they divide their money, and all of us here, we have lost our relative. Most of Matianganyor are dead. Most of the White Army are dead. They are wounded. People have lost legs. They have lost their arms. Their families are destroyed. And Kiir can just give contract to his daughter to go and collect revenues. And everything is good. And he wonder, how is it that people are talking about anything? Why are they not clapping their hand and coming up with songs to praise him? This is all that is Kiir had. So tribalism has been a long history. And you know very well that Jalaba used it, and Tim Edward chronicled this when he talked about how Kokora was really used by the Jalaba to divide the unity of South Sudanese and to make South Sudanese people distrust each other. And then the same mistakes that the Jalaba were making, we went and created the same mistakes in the bush. Being angry against our own brothers. And because of the power struggle and greed for the power, we start shooting our first bullet our own brothers. With Anyanya 1, and with Anyanya 2, with the SPLA killing each other, simply because of power. Instead of them, even if they don't want to unite and work together, they can all be fighting the same enemy without them attacking each other. This is the funny thing about people that say that they have the same objectives. But then they go and attack their own brothers that are fighting for the same objective. And it's simply because we have been taught this hatred, that to hate each other based on tribe and based on region. This is why you see, even now as we are doing this civic education, there are some of our brothers and sisters from Rek Dinka in particular, especially from Gogrial, that are out there attacking us. They claim, yes, we want to change the government, but when we attack Salva Kiir and point out how he has failed the nation, then they balk. Why is Salva Kiir being attacked? Because in their head, regionalism has been entrenched, the same way that tribalism has been entrenched in the mind of other South Sudanese. And we have to liberate our mind. We have to liberate our mind. So these are some of the things that Tim Edwards talked about. And obviously, he talks about how tribalism feed nepotism. How tribalism feed nepotism. And you can see with all these jobs that are in South Sudan, go to all the areas that are lucrative. If you go to the oil sector, who is employed there? These are relatives of people that are connected to the power. So they prefer to give their relatives that are not qualified in any way whatsoever the jobs. And they will leave other South Sudanese with better credentials, with better skills to suffer. They don't want them to give them the job. This is why now you have idiots that cannot even pronounce simple sentences vying for a position in the office of the president. Someone think they can become a press secretary, yet they cannot even speak English because they think they can just praise the boss. They can be matokrap and they sing the politics of the belly. And because of that, because of the region they come from, because of the clan they come from, they think they are better qualified because, they are loyal. They are loyal because they come from the same tribe as the boss. They are loyal because they come from the same region as the boss. This is how tribalism has weakened us and has prevented us to unite as people of South Sudan to overcome the massive challenges that we face. And this is what Tim Edward talks about. Even in Juba today, if you look at how our people are living, you find neighborhoods that are exclusively from one clan or one area. Our people are not mixed. They're not mixed together. They have not embraced each other as one people. And we have to overcome this because we have something bigger that we are doing, and that is to build a nation. Right? And if we build a nation, let's treat each other based on our skills, on our ideas, on our vision. Let's give opportunities to those with credentials. And let those without credentials, let them go and improve their credentials. You cannot just come and praise somebody and you think that is the qualification for a job. Or you defend a relative because, we are the one defending you. That is not a qualification for a job. You have to have skills and expertise that you will use to improve the working condition in that environment. It's not just simply because you are singing matograbism. Politics of the belly need to end. And tribalism and regionalism have always encouraged it. So that is chapter 16. Now, chapter 17, this chapter talks about the ethnic rivalries between the Dinka and Nuer. And this is very important because you know very well this crisis that we have in South Sudan, when it started in 2013, Salva Kiir used tribalism to make it as if it is a tribal war between the Dinka and Nuer. And the same thing, Riek Machar fell into the same trap and accepted it to be a tribal war between the Dinka and Nuer. So if you see, both of them, these two leaders, Riek Machar and Salva Kiir, have always approached politics in South Sudan from the angle of tribalism, trying to use a particular tribe to get into power. The same way that Salva Kiir has walked into power on the back of Baragazal, Riek Machar has been walking on the back of Nuer people for all these years to entrench himself and his family in the apex of power in South Sudan. And this is what is chronicled in this chapter. Obviously, if you look historically, yes, we have had our differences. But at the same time, majority of Dinka and Nuer are related by blood. You find in both tribes, families that has come from other tribes. If you look, for example, in the case of Pakam, Agar Pakam of Rumbek North, Wola Duolkwe, he came from Nuer. And he ended up becoming a chief of one of the most powerful sections of Dinka. Right? The same thing, Lao Nuer, majority of Lao Nuer, they came from Dinka. They're Jiang. So we are really connected by tribes. The same thing if you look in every different section of Nuer, there are Dinka that are there. The same in the Dinka, sections of Dinka, you find Nuer families that move. Even just recently, people like the former governor of Upper Nile State, Galwag Dengarang. Galwag Dengarang came from, his family came from Twitch East, from Adiok, and they migrated to Nuer. As recently as the floods of the 1960s, the great floods, when the floods happened. And even within our own clan in Awulian, there are families that moved to Nasser, and they have settled there, and they have lived there, and they have become part of the families, because our traditions are the same. We are very connected. Even the language itself has a lot of similarities. So the rivalry that we have is the same rivalry that siblings have. When you have a brother or two brothers that are rival. Yes, they are rival, but they are part of the same family. The problem is when you have worthless politicians without values, people that are simply blinded by power. They exaggerate the differences that exist among our people, and they manipulate the people using all kinds of tools, including, by the way, spiritual leaders, prophets, and Bangabit, so that the hatred grows among the people. And they use the people as the tools for which they can take over power. So we in South Sudan, we have been caught in this dichotomy. And we have these two leaders, Kiri on the one hand, Riek Machar on the others, that then come together to create this cycle where the Dinka and the Nuer are pit against each other as enemies. But are we really enemies? Why are we enemies? We share the same location. We are suffering. If you look, for example, all the crimes that Salva Kiir has created, murder. He has not just simply murdered the Nuer people. He has murdered also the Dinka. He has murdered the Equatorian. He has murdered everybody that is in South Sudan. In terms of hunger and the stealing of the resources, it's all of our resources that are stolen. If you look at the environmental degradation that has happened as a result of the exploitation of the oil, both Dinka and Nuer are suffering. All of us, we are in the same boat. But we are fighting each other. We made to distrust each other. This is what we need to overcome. So if you look in this chapter, if you go through it, you will see the crimes that were committed. You read about, for example, how Riek Machar used the split of 1991 to mobilize along ethnic lines and manipulate people using prophets, someone called Wurnyang, you know him very well, and then made it a tribal war. And he used that to elevate himself. And then he betrayed the people of South Sudan by then going to Khartoum and joining with the enemy. This is exactly what Salva Kiir did in 2013. He went and mobilized Matianganyor, claimed that there was a coup, which was completely fake, and then he basically allowed the Dinka militia that has been recruited and trained exclusively in Werap to go and attack people and kill women, children, elderly. So we have become hostages to them. And this is why now they're hanging out in J1. You saw the other day when Salva Kiir was traveling to Addis, and then when he was traveling to Rwanda, they're walking together with Riek Machar, they're smiling. They're probably talking, how much money do you have in your bank account now? You know, these people are crying of the economic crisis. You know, my bank account is too fat. What about your bank account? Oh yeah, it's too fat too. This is what they are discussing. Because they are not even talking about the nation. They're talking about themselves and what they are getting, how they have entrenched themselves in power. And even as we speak, do you know what is really going on? There is a project in the SPLM to unite them again so that Riek Machar goes back to the SPLM and becomes deputy to Salva Kiir. Imagine, after thousands and hundreds of thousands of people have died, what was he fighting for? To preserve himself in power. So now he's going to be a deputy again to Kiir. This is what he's doing. So he has just used Nuer people as like chums, the same way Kiir has used Dinka people as chums. They think we are idiots. They can just use us, and then we come and we sing and we say, "Kor, kor, 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 medit, bind it, bind it." This is, and then we go and we say, "Well, there is nothing for the family. My daughter is getting married. My son is getting married." And then they say, "Okay, here is $10,000," and they have stolen millions and billions and billions and billions of the country. We have to wake up. We can't allow two warlords to continue to exploit our people forever. And this is what Tim Edwards explained in this chapter, how this division has been used. Now, chapter 18 talks about the political quandary in the SPLM. And here, Tim Edwards gives us a bit of the background of how SPLM has always had this problem, especially problem of institutionalization, problem of leadership, power struggle. All of this is what has been happening in the SPLM from the very beginning up to now. And it continues to be the case. And then he gives us also the most recent history of how the situation led to the crisis in 2013. How SPLM had failed to transform itself into a political party from a movement. How SPLM has failed to come up with institutions so that it can mediate between rivaling candidates. Because in any political party, people will run for different positions. And you have to have institutions that will allow people to decide who should be the leader today without violence. This SPLM could not handle. And you remember, Tim Edward reminded us what the real sticking points were. And there were three points. Number one was the appointment of the delegates. You know, any party that claimed to be a popular party that is represented by the people, the delegates are elected by the people. They're elected at the grassroots. The SPLM, especially Kidit, wants to appoint a certain portion of the delegate. He wants to appoint a certain portion of the delegate himself so that he appoints his loyalists, people that he knows are not trusted by the members at the grassroots. So he would just appoint them directly. And it's the delegate that will come and elect the chairman, right? So imagine you want to appoint the electors. You want to appoint your friend to be the one to conduct the election, which is what they are doing now, by the way, with the Electoral Commission. They are shameless in their corruption and their lack of moral values. That is one of the things that led to the problem. Second was who should be then elected. You remember with the first convention of 1994, the deputy who became Salva Kiir, by the way, was elected by the convention. It was not just appointed by Garang. But Salva Kiir now, in 2013, want to change that. He wants only to be the chairman to be elected so that he can appoint whoever he wants, one of his matokraps, to be his deputy. Right? So he wants to change the constitution so that the other positions are not elected, but they can just be directly appointed. Imagine. He forgot how he became the deputy in the first place. So that was the second problem. The third was how people will vote. Kiir did. Imagine in the constitution, even from 1994, when people voted by secret ballot. You write in a paper, whoever you have voted for, you go and put it in. And those who are conducting the election will count the votes and see who has won. But Kiir did, in this case, wanted to be the one to see who is voting for whom. So he wanted the voting to be done by show of hand. Imagine. And the excuse is, oh, people are illiterate. If people were illiterate, how did they vote in the referendum? Was there a show of hand in the referendum? Didn't we all select in the secret ballot and you put your thing in, whether you vote for unity or you vote for separation? And in particular, now we are talking about SPLM people. These are some of the elites. Most of them are highly educated. So the idea was simply for Salva Kiir to know who is not voting for him, so that he used his national security to intimidate them. And then he used a Kolokur and his unknown gunmen to either kill you or intimidate you. That was the whole objective. So Tim Edward talks about this. And then, of course, the power struggle for the top seat. All of you, even now we are talking about how Salva Kiir failure has become so obvious. But even if you go back to 2013, it was obvious. By then, the guy was already failed. There has been so much corruption. There's been the Durai saga. There has been the missing money between Arthur Okwien and Pagana Mum. We don't know who took the money, but the money disappeared. There's been so many corruption incidences. There has been such failure to deliver services. Remember back then, they used to talk about peace dividends. No dividends ever arrived to the people of South Sudan. So people were already fed up. And in 2011, 2012, after the independence, they sent a delegation to the grassroots to go and thank the people for voting for independence. And what did they hear? They were told the SPLM has failed. So SPLM was already failed. So Riek Machar wanted to become the leader. And then also Mama Nyandeng wanted to be the leader. And Pagana Mum wanted to be the leader. So there was already power struggle in the SPLM. And it is this power struggle that now allows Salva Kiir to go and sit with his group. And if you go back to chapter 1, they are mentioned, those he sat with, mostly from Werap, particularly from Rek, Dinka. And you will find that most of them are from Gorial and Tony. They went and met, and they decided that they're going to come up with a final solution. We talk about this in chapter 1, what that final solution was. It was basically to stage a fake coup, use that to attack supporters of Riek Machar, supporters of Nyandeng, supporters of Pagana Mum, and to eliminate anyone that disagreed with them. And that's what led to the Juba massacre, right? So this was how that came about. So Tim Edward is taking us now full circle. Then he talks about the December 6th press conference at the SPLM house and the December 14 National Liberation Council meeting, where the whole crisis came to its head. And where now, after that, the meeting, the way it was conducted, which was shameful. Michael McQuay was used to be, he has no, he's not even a member of political bureau. He's just a member of the National Liberation Council. But he was used to be the one now conducting the debate. So, people will raise their hand and he will look. And if he knows that this is one of the Matograp supporters, he will give them a chance. But if he knows the person who is going to talk is going to either support Dr. Riak or Mama Nyandeng or Paganamum, he will pretend that he has not seen you. You could literally be raising your hand in front of him and he will pretend that he has not seen you. And then he just concluded the debate and said, oh, the debate is over. The whole thing has been endorsed. Clap your hand, Pamke. And then people clap their hand and they say the whole thing is endorsed. Of course, Dr. Riek Machar was angry, so he left and he said, Kaj Lora, which, by the way, in Nuera, from what I understand, means bullshit. And indeed, this was a complete bullshit. So, and then later on, the war started. So this is what Tim Edwards reminded us. How did we end up where we are? So that is chapter 18. Chapter 19 is about really how the conflict created the politics of martographism. The title there is We Torture and Exterminate Our Own. Now when the war has broken out, everybody wanted to prove to Salva Kiir that they were loyal. We are the most loyal people to you. Now for the ministers, that meant standing behind Salva Kiir. I felt bad. If you look at that after when he announced the fake coup, he dressed in his tiger uniform. I feel bad for people like Nguen Mointwil who are standing behind there, pretending that, and those of Tut Galwak, they're standing there, and Matianganyor and Durkubany are going mad in Juba, killing their own relatives, and they are there standing to pretend that they are loyal to Salva Kiir and to say all these terrible things, while their own relatives are being killed. In Juba, they did not differentiate between a Bull Nuer or Law Nuer or Jikany Nuer or whatever. Or they basically they kill everyone. And you have ministers there pretending to stand behind Salva Kiir because they are the loyal guys. There is a particular quote here from Tim Edward that I need to read. So he said, for the ministers, this took the form of standing by the president and talking against the so-called coup plotters and vigorously condemning the resultant rebellion, now led by erstwhile Vice President Riek Machar. For army officers, it entailed being involved in fighting the rebellion or being seen to be doing so. The worst group were the security and intelligence operative, who resorted to arbitrarily accusing, arresting, and killing perceived rebel sympathizers, genuine or otherwise. And by the way, it's sad but a lot of people were killed, even people who did not rebel. I mentioned to you last time, and we read this in the other chapters, when Lual Maroldit, who is now the commander of Tiger, literally rounded up a group of young Nuer officers and their families who were within the Tiger and protection unit of the president and executed every single one of them. He killed them because he wanted to prove that he's loyal. And the whole thing wanted to be made to be a tribal war. So those people were just exterminated, regardless of where they come from. There is also here a talk in later on in the book, how some of these intelligent officers were trying to prove how they are loyal. And they began basically trying to kill whoever they can kill so that the big man, Kidit, will consider them as very patriotic and very good officers. There is here in particular a case involving the killing of Peter Abderrahman Sule and Major General Elias Lino Jada. These guys were killed. They were abducted in Ajumani district of northern Uganda, and this was actually orchestrated directly by the SPLA and with the involvement of the president, direct orders, where people that are known refugees were kidnapped. And they were brought back, and it was agreed that they should be exterminated. And so they were killed. So this is what has been happening. Kiir destroyed the nation, used tribalism, and then he used that now to basically lock everybody in as either a slave or a martograph. And all these ministers, they became martographs. Even if you are a minister and you have no power, you just have to sing song to the big guy. What is the point of being a minister? What is the point of being a high official in the government when you have absolutely no power? People accuse me and they say, Peter, you have your own relatives in the government. It's true. I have those relatives. But they make their own decision. I make my own decision. There is absolutely no way I will serve in such a government. I left this government before the war, even in 2013, when I realized that there was no way forward. There was no vision. And it was just a complete nonsense. So I left, and I have to think of a better way to change it. And the way I conceive was to fight it from the outside. You know, so it's terrible when you find these opposition. Like now, you have the SPLMIO in opposition. In opposition to what? They are in the government. How can you be in the government and in the opposition at the same time? It's just a confusion, so that they confuse the people of South Sudan and make it difficult for people to actually come up with a practical solution to deal with this situation. And tribalism has been used, as I keep on telling you. So that is what you find in that chapter. Now, the last chapter of the book, this is chapter 20, is called The Beginning of the End. And this is a very interesting chapter. And here, Tim Edwards really challenged us. He kind of tells us really how the vision of building a new state in South Sudan and a new nation was brought to an abrupt end by this confusion in the SPLM, and particularly by the person of Salva Kiir. And we have now turned against each other. We are killing each other. There is raping. There is massacres along ethnic line. I mentioned, of course, the Juba massacres that happened, but also there were massacres that happened in Malakal. There were massacres that happened in Bentiu, conducted by the White Army against the Dinka. There were massacres that happened in Bor. People were killed, just similarly like what happened in 1991. So tribalism was used here in the first instance in Juba with the killing of the Nuer in Juba. And that now generated revenge. And when the message is spread that the Nuer were being killed door to door, the relatives in other part of the country were upset, and they came up with the idea of revenge. So people were killed in all of these areas as well. So it's not just only Nuer that were killed in Juba. There were Dinka killed in Bor, in Malakal, and in different parts of the country. And this was done deliberately to divide the nation. And the people who are responsible for this, Salva Kiir and Riek Machar. So now when we talk about the end that Tim Edward talks there is the end where he throws the ball at us. What is the end of this, my people? All of you now, you have known this story. You know those who are responsible. How does this story end? Let me tell you, the story ends with us getting rid of these people. We have to get rid of this regime. We have to remove Salva Kiir and those of Riek Machar and all of these guys. They are not there to offer a better alternative. They are there to protect their own so that they themselves have access to some of the loot, so that they can loot resources. They are not there to bring a different future for the nation. That is why they have been in the government. Salva Kiir is allowing our territories of South Sudan, to be taken by Uganda, by Kenya. Have you seen Dr. Riek Machar criticize that? Have you seen any of these people in the government, all these 5 vice presidents? Has any one of them come out and say that is wrong, that we cannot allow our territories to be stolen? Have you seen any of the other opposition leaders, the so-called South Sudan Opposition Alliance, or anyone in Juba, come out and criticize this and say this is unacceptable? No. Why? Because they have food in their mouth. And according to our culture, you cannot talk when you have food in your mouth. So they have food in their mouth. Their mouth is full of food. And they have no time to say anything. They're just busy eating. This is why we have to accept the reality we face. I know people have been loyal to different politicians for so long, but that is a mistake. You cannot give your loyalty so cheap to an individual. You have to give your loyalty to an idea, a better idea. You know, it's not about being loyal to individuals. It's not about being loyal to me as a person. It's not about me. And I keep saying, people say, well, we're not going to make you president, as if I have asked them to vote for me and make me a president. No. It's about rescuing this country. And we cannot allow the country to be blackmailed the way that it has been blackmailed. So the ending chapter of this book has to be written by us. And it has to be written not with words, but with action. And this is why I'm appealing to the young people of South Sudan. Now you know the people who have stolen from you, who have taken your resources, who have stolen your future, who have killed your relatives, who have maimed women, children, and elderly. What are you going to do about it? Well, my friends, you can say that I am crazy or whatever, but let me tell you, unless we get rid of these individuals, we ourselves have no chance of coming together as a people, of reconciling. They will use tribalism. The way you see Salva Kiir so upset about me, In his head, he thinks as a good Dinka boy, I should not be criticizing him. I should not be pointing out the terrible things he's doing, how he is a thief, how he's a sex maniac, how he's an alcoholic, how he's a murderer, and how he's engaging in witchcraft. He thinks that I should not say anything. I should be protecting him because we are Dinka. Imagine, he want to steal and do terrible things, and then he want me to protect him simply because we come from the same clan. I think somebody has not told him the story of the old man and the young man. I think in Dinka we have this story. I think it's important to say this story. Well, once upon a time, there was a old man and his son, and they lived together, and they were sitting in the byre, in the luak, and then the old man and the son are talking, and there are guests that are supposed to come and join them. While they are waiting, the young man somehow has managed to eat a lot of food, and which has not gone well with his stomach. So as people were beginning to arrive in just a few hours, he went. Sort of like what happened in Terekeka. Was it Goliath? It just boop, he went and he defecated inside the byre. So when he realized it and the guests are coming and there is nothing he's going to do about it, he said to his father, Baba, you are an old man. You have done everything that need to be done in the world. You have got married. You have done a lot of great things. Let's say this thing that has happened with me, if it is known that it is me who has done it, my reputation is going to be destroyed. So I want you to accept that you are the one who defecated in the byre. So please say this is you. The old man is saying, my friend, no. Yes, I'm an old man and I've done my thing, but my son, I did my thing in my generation. And it's up to you to keep your own record in your generation. If you defecate in the house, you cannot say, it's me who has defecated. It's you who have defecated. You gotta carry your own cross. That is the same story that need to be told to Salva Kiir. He cannot do these terrible things and then expect us as Dinka young people to not talk about them. And that we need to show our loyalty by not talking about his terrible deed and accept we are the one who are responsible for this, all of us. No, there is someone who has actually defecated, and that is him, not everybody. This is specific. There is a name to it, and we need to point that out very clearly. So he needs to carry his own cross. So we as a young people, how does this end? How does this chapter end? It has been 10 years since we got our independence, and we have allowed these elders, these so-called leaders of the SPLM, to destroy the nation. They destroyed the legacy that was accomplished by so many millions of people. How does it end? The only way it ends, the only way we bring it to an honorable end, to a fitting ending, a justified ending that will honor the sacrifice of our ancestors and the aspiration of the younger generation, is to remove them and to allow South Sudan a better chance, a chance where we can build a real nation, where Dinka, Nuer, Taposa, Bari, Zande, Shuluk, Murle, all of us are in it as a nation. And we build a country that we can all be proud of, a country in which our people will enjoy life in a dignified fashion, will have access to clean water, will have access to school, to hospital, so that their life can improve. That is supposed to be the objective of every government. And this government has failed to achieve that for the last 19 years. It's time that it is removed, and we have to bring about a better government. This is the ending of the Tim Edward book. We have gone through it now over several weeks, and I appreciate each and every one of you for reading the book. I know it has consumed a lot of your time. A lot of you have spent a lot of time on Facebook. All of this I appreciate. But it was important to go through it from a perspective of a different person, because he's saying the same thing that we have been saying. And we have seen with our own eyes those details that are absolutely shocking. It shows group of leaders that are just like hyenas, fighting over a carcass, trying to take as much as they can, without regard for the wounded heroes, for the veterans, for the widows, for the orphans. It's time for us to get rid of them. How are we going to get rid of them? By any means necessary. Some of you are soldiers. You have to think, what can you do? Some of you, you are journalists. You have to see what you can do. Some of you are politicians. You have to speak the truth. Some of you, you are community leaders. Make sure your communities are not used to encourage and perpetuate the same evils. We owe this to those who have died, and we owe this to those who are yet to be born. We cannot allow ourselves to sit and be turned into slaves so that we are used to kill one another. And Kir can laugh and say, Actul Abid Bel Abid, the way that they have been doing with Riek Machar and all their cronies sitting in J1. We have to remove them, and we have to hold them accountable for all the terrible deeds they have done, the division that they have caused the people of South Sudan. And this year, 2024, is the year to remove them. Once again, my people, share the video. If you are Matograp, feel free, make your opinions, let them be known. If you want to make your videos known. We welcome it. We encourage your ability to speak your mind. If you're a patriot, also share the video, make your comments known, and let's get the conversation going. And let it not just end online. Sit within your family, within your clan, within your groups, with the people that you hang out with. Discuss, what can you do? What can you do? Let's remember the quote of John F. Kennedy here in the US. He said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. And that is the time we begin to think about that. What can we do for South Sudan? Let's ask this in a small circle. Let's ask this within our clan. Let's ask this within our family. And let's prepare to act. Because this year, 2024, is the year to act. May God Almighty bless you. And I look forward to seeing you next week as we begin a different topic for conversation. Looking forward to seeing you. God bless you and all your families. Enjoy the rest of your